Imagine you're lost in the canals of Xochimilco, the air thick with silence. Then, from the mist, you see it. An island where hundreds of lifeless dolls hang from the trees, their empty eyes following your every move. Some say they whisper, some say they move when no one is looking. But the true horror, the story behind them, and the curse that still lingers. What if I told you that one man tried to uncover the truth and paid the ultimate price? And what if I told you that once you hear this story, the dolls might start watching you too? It is said that deep within the canals of Xochimilco, there exists an island unlike any other, a place where the trees whisper secrets, and the wind carries the soft murmurs of something unseen. Some say it is cursed, others call it a place of eternal suffering. But all who have set foot on it agree, this is not an island for the living. The island of the dolls. The legend begins with a man named Don Julián Santana. He was not a believer in myths or curses, not at first. He was just a simple man who sought solitude away from the chaos of the world. But his peace was shattered the day he discovered the lifeless body of a young girl floating in the canal. Her eyes stared blankly at the sky, her tiny fingers curled as if reaching for something just beyond her grasp. No one knew who she was. No one came searching for her. And so, in a quiet act of sorrow, Don Julián buried the girl with his own hands, marking the place where she was found. But it was what he found next that would change everything. A doll, half submerged in the murky water, its empty eyes staring straight into his soul. Believing the doll belonged to the little girl, he hung it on a tree as a tribute to her spirit. Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps it was something darker that compelled him to do so. But from that moment on, Don Julián's life was never the same. It started with whispers, soft, almost inaudible. A child's giggle carried by the wind, the rustling of leaves when there was no breeze. At night, he could hear footsteps outside his hut, but whenever he stepped out, he found nothing. Then, the dolls started coming to him. More and more dolls appeared in the water, as if drawn to the island by an unseen force. Their glassy eyes reflected the moonlight. Their small hands reached out, as if beckoning him closer. Unable to ignore the growing presence, Don Julián began collecting them, hanging them from trees, placing them in every corner of his home. He believed the dolls kept the spirit of the girl at peace. But what if they weren't protecting him? What if they were watching him? The locals thought he had gone mad. They called him cursed. But Don Julián was convinced that he had uncovered something beyond human understanding. He spoke of shadows moving between the trees, of dolls whispering secrets when no one was around. He swore that the girl's spirit was not alone, that something else lurked in the darkness, something that demanded more than just dolls. And then, after years of isolation, something happened that shook the villagers to their core. Don Julián was found floating in the canal, in the exact same spot where he had once found the little girl. His body was lifeless, his face frozen in an expression of pure terror. The cause of his death? No one knows for sure. Some say he drowned, others whisper that the dolls had finally taken what they wanted. But the story does not end there. To this day, the island of the dolls remains as it was left, an eerie shrine of lifeless faces staring down from the trees. Visitors who dare to step onto the island speak of an overwhelming presence, an invisible weight pressing down on them. Many claim they hear whispers, laughter, and the sound of tiny footsteps following them wherever they go. Some say the dolls move when no one is looking, that their heads turn ever so slightly, that their lips part just enough to let out a breathy whisper. And then there are those who claim that if you listen closely, just before nightfall, you can hear the voice of a little girl calling out. Not for help, but for something much more terrifying. She's calling for you. So if you ever find yourself near the canals of Xochimilco and you see a doll floating in the water, do not pick it up. Do not take it home. Do not stare into its empty eyes for too long, because some say that once you do, you'll never truly be alone again.